and it's like a scene out of a movie, and I'm walking closer and closer, and I'm like, this is my idol. Like, this is Jordan. And he stopped by and he said he just wanted to show me some love.
Did you invite him in?
I did, but he was like, no. They already denied me once. Like,
At just 21, he wasn't supposed to be ready. A skinny kid from North Carolina, still lacing up in college colors, suddenly thrown into battle against the NBA's gods. Magic Johnson, orchestrating with a smile. Larry Bird, dissecting with cold precision. Rulers of the basketball universe. And yet, in the summer of 1984, a single college junior named Michael Jordan bent them to his will. His first step, cut like a razor. His jumper sang like jazz. His hang time mocked the laws of nature. Not once, not twice, but 8 times, he carved them up. The pros had everything: experience, chemistry, pride. Jordan had only one thing: hunger. So how? Did the kid devour the kings? What you just saw wasn't luck. It was destiny taking shape in real time. A kid rewriting the rules of the game before he even stepped into the league. This is Amazing Hoops, where we relive the moments that changed basketball forever. Let's dive deeper. Part 1. The stage was set. The summer of 1984 was a strange time in basketball. A landscape ruled by giants, where the belief was simple and unshakable. You don't build dynasties around guards, you build them around centers. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was still skyhooking his way into immortality. Moses Malone was pounding the boards like a heavyweight champion. Ralph Sampson stood as a futuristic 7 feet, 4 inches unicorn. And a raw Hakeem Olajuwon was about to enter the league as the #1 pick. Guards? They were exciting, sure, but they were not meant to carry franchises. Not meant to be the centerpiece of championship dreams. Which is why, when a wiry 6 feet, 6 inches junior from North Carolina named Michael Jordan announced himself to the basketball world, the skepticism was thick. Yes, he had been the College Player of the Year. Yes, he had been the leading scorer of the ACC. He had even hit the legendary shot in 1982 to win Dean Smith's first NCAA title. And yet, Dautzlinger. Could his acrobatics translate against NBA defenses? Could a kid without size dominate men who made their living in the paint?
In my opinion, Michael Jordan has the opportunity to become one of the all-time great basketball players in the history of the game. I'm talking about in the class of the Weston Robertson, a Hall of Fame type player. He possesses so many skills physically, and he has all the skills as a basketball player in regards to shooting, ball handling, movement with and without the ball.
At 6'6", what do you think will be his best position?
Well, he really provides a great luxury for the Chicago Bulls in this respect, because he can play the small forward. He can also play the second guard, and there are not many guys that can do that with equal ability. So there is just no limit to what Michael can do.
Portland certainly didn't think best college players, stitched together by Bobby Knight, were set to face rosters stacked with rotating NBA All-Stars. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Isiah Thomas, Kevin McHale, the very faces of the league. They were brought in to toughen up the kids, to remind them of the difference between amateur and professional basketball. But what happened next wasn't a lesson for the college boys, it was a humiliation for the pros. In those games, Jordan was electric, blending mid-range precision with relentless drives. And Pat Riley, watching courtside, would later say, "He's as gifted a player as any I've ever seen play ball." How could one college kid tear through the league's brightest stars before even playing a single NBA minute? Part 2. The college kid against the league. 8 games, 8 shocks to the system, and by the end, the NBA's best weren't sure if they had just been embarrassed or if they had witnessed the birth of something unstoppable. Michael Jordan wasn't simply participating in the 1984 Olympic Team USA scrimmages. He was orchestrating them like a conductor. Every dribble a note, every jumper a crescendo. Game 1 looked like a formality on paper. Orlando Woolridge, the Bulls' leading scorer at the time, headlined the NBA squad, but Jordan shredded him, slashing into the paint with hang-time finishes that left Chicago's front office stunned in the bleachers, whispering to each other, "Is this the future of our franchise?" Then came Game 2, a true test. Magic Johnson running the floor, Kevin McHale's length, Isiah Thomas's bite. Surely the kids would fold. Instead, Jordan attacked relentlessly, pulling up in transition, blowing past Magic with a first step so quick it looked like fast forward. Team USA stole a 6-point win, and suddenly, the veterans looked human. Game 3 featured Clyde Drexler, Bill Walton, and Danny Ainge, a mix of athleticism, size, and shooting. Jordan's answer was dominance in every phase. Mid-range jumpers, steals leading to dunks, and precision cuts off the ball. Another win, this time by 13. And then came the heavyweight clash, Game 4. Boston's holy trinity of Larry Bird, McHale, and Parrish, bolstered by Isiah Thomas, walked in with pride and pedigree. But Jordan dismantled them piece by piece. He rose up over Bird's closeouts, sliced through McHale's arms with 15-foot daggers, converted drives that turned legends into bystanders. Team USA by 15. At the halfway point, the record stood at 4 games, 4 wins, and the whispers began. Was this kid, this college junior who hadn't played a single NBA minute, already the best guard alive? Magic would later recall, "We weren't going half speed. We wanted to win. And he still beat us."
Well, Bobby does make a good point there, and he gets on my case some, but he said, "Hey, you explain to me what a guard is and what a forward is. Michael Jordan is a basketball player, and so I really don't. I'd have to agree with Bob on that one. There is no significance where you put him on the court. He just is so versatile.
He's interchangeable for sure.
It was more than scrimmages. It was a revelation, and the question that echoed across gyms and locker rooms alike was simple: had the NBA just been introduced to the man who would own its future? Part 3. The sweep becomes reality. By the time the series reached its final stretch, the NBA All-Stars were desperate to restore their pride. But every adjustment, every lineup shuffle, only seemed to make Michael Jordan stronger. Game 5 was supposed to be poetic justice. James Worthy, Jordan's old running mate at North Carolina, now an NBA Finals MVP with the Lakers, took the floor convinced familiarity would give him an edge. Instead, Worthy later confessed, "I thought I knew every move Mike had." Turns out he had 5 more. Team USA by 11. Game 6 offered a new cast: Doc Rivers, Terry Cummings, Mike Dunleavy. But the result felt inevitable. Jordan dictated tempo, slashing through defenses, dropping pull-ups with surgical calm, and the college kids rolled by 16. Game 7 nearly flipped the script. Rolando Blackman's squad fought back, cutting into leads, making the young Olympians sweat. For the first time, the pros looked like they might steal one, but Jordan, as if insulted by the thought, rattled off 16 points down the stretch, sealing the win by 5, and reminding everyone whose hand was on the steering wheel. And then came Game 80, the one everyone remembers. The NBA's last stand: Magic Johnson, Isiah Thomas, Alex English, the league's silent scoring assassin, Mark Aguirre, Michael Cooper, Larry Nance, a roster dripping with talent. On paper, it should have been a rout for the pros. Instead, Jordan authored a masterpiece: 27 points, rebounds snatched in traffic, assists threaded through impossible angles, steals that flipped momentum, and dunks that lifted the crowd into frenzy. Every possession was a highlight: hang-time finishes, baseline jumpers, and that thunderous putback off a Patrick Ewing miss. Final score: Team USA 84, NBA All-Stars 72. A clean sweep, 8 wins to none. Pat Riley, who had been watching, didn't mince words. "He's as gifted a player as any I've ever seen play ball."
And then you had all your media naysayers. "Oh, scoring champion can't win an NBA title. Well, you're not as good as Magic Johnson. You're not as good as Larry Bird. You're good, but you're not as good as those guys." I had to listen to all this, and that put so much wool on that fire that it kept me each and every day trying to get better as a basketball player.
And here's the haunting question: if Michael Jordan could dismantle legends before ever logging an NBA minute, what storm was waiting for the league once he finally put on a Bulls uniform? Part 4. The playing style that shattered defenses. At 21, Michael Jordan wasn't just playing basketball. He was reinventing how the game could be attacked. And in those 1984 exhibition games against NBA All-Stars, his style felt like something the pros had never encountered before. His mid-range jumper was already a weapon of destruction, a shot that would define his career long before analytics tried to erase it. He would rise effortlessly above defenders, hold the ball high like a monarch displaying his crown, and snap his wrist with such precision that the net barely whispered. Then came his speed in transition, a terror all its own. Snatching a rebound or intercepting a pass, Jordan needed only 4 dribbles to cover the entire court, finishing with a slam that left even Magic Johnson shaking his head years later, saying, "He just kept coming at you, like he had jets on his shoes." I too. His hang time bordered on the supernatural. While defenders dropped to the ground, Jordan lingered in the air as if gravity had granted him an extension, switching hands mid-flight, drawing fouls, finishing plays that seemed impossible. And unlike many scorers who saved their energy for offense, Jordan treated defense like a personal duel. He hounded Isiah Thomas full court, stripped Magic Johnson in open space, chased down jump shooters with the relentlessness of a wolf stalking prey, and in doing so, announced that he would dominate both ends of the floor. But perhaps the most dangerous element wasn't his skill, it was his mind. The NBA All-Stars expected a college kid to be intimidated, to bow under the weight of legends. But Jordan flipped the script, with his swagger, his glare, his body language that all but shouted, "You might be Magic, you might be Bird, but tonight, you're in my world." And that psychological edge made the pros uneasy. Because if a junior from North Carolina could outscore, outjump, and outthink them before ever wearing an NBA jersey, what storm was about to hit the league once he finally stepped onto the professional stage? Part 5. Voices of the Legends. The echoes of those summer games in 1984 did not fade with the final buzzer. They lived on in the words of the men who stood across from Michael Jordan and realized they were witnessing something far bigger than basketball. Larry Bird, who had already collected MVP trophies and defined the 1980 season Celtics, said it with a kind of awe that still resonates decades later.
That wasn't Michael Jordan out there. It was God disguised as Michael Jordan.
To Bird, that wasn't hyperbole. It was the only explanation for how a college junior could carve through Hall of Famers like they were practice cones. And Magic Johnson, the face of Showtime, would later tell a story that revealed just how dangerous Jordan really was.
East versus the West. So all the East guys, Jordan, Pippen, Bird, Barkley, and Ewing, bam. And then all the West guys, Malone, Robinson, Drexler, Mullen, and Stockton. So we all played against each other. So we were going at each other and talking stuff. So Charles Barkley took Malone one time and he scored. I said, "Come on, Carl, you got to get his ass back. You got to get his ass back. So get down on that block and get him back." So I threw it to him. He scored. They come back. They scored. We scored. So we were talking stuff. So finally, we got on a little run. So we scored about 8 in a row. They didn't score. Timeout. So Michael walking back. I don't usually talk trash, but I had to that time. So I said, "Michael, if you don't turn into Air Jordan, we're going to blow y'all out."
Imagine that, the NBA's most charismatic winner, confessing that even at 21, Jordan had bent the game to his will. Isiah Thomas, the fearless leader of the Bad Boy Pistons, offered no excuses either. He was a killer. Even then, college kid or not, he felt his presence. And Pat Riley never won for flowery praise, sat courtside and simply declared, "He's as gifted a player as any I've ever seen." These weren't fans talking. These were the very men Jordan would battle for supremacy throughout the decade. And they had seen enough in 8 exhibition games to crown him before his career had even begun. Even his Olympic teammates understood they were playing alongside destiny. Chris Mullin later remembered, "We all knew Mike was the guy. He led us, no questions asked." That's the part that made it so undeniable. Jordan didn't just score, he commanded. Veterans with years of playoff wars in their bodies suddenly looked over and saw a kid running the show. A kid who hadn't yet cashed an NBA paycheck, but already demanded the ball in the clutch, already dictated tempo, already owned the court. How many players in history could inspire legends to speak of them in divine terms before they even took their first professional shot? That was the riddle Jordan posed to the basketball world in 1984. And the answers would only grow more mythical with time. Part 6. Echoes of music, echoes of war. If the NBA of the 1980 season was a grand symphony, full of giants and legends each playing their part, then Michael Jordan was the trumpet that cut through the orchestra. Sharper, louder, impossible to tune out. And in those 1984 exhibition games against the All-Stars, his game sounded unlike anything the league had ever heard. Against veterans like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Isiah Thomas, Jordan played like a jazz soloist, improvising on the fly, bending tempo with hesitation dribbles, stutter steps, and crossovers that seemed to bounce on a rhythm only he could hear. One possession might begin with a pause, a head fake, a hesitation, and then, suddenly, an explosive crescendo as he blew by defenders for a soaring finish at the rim. The fluidity was music, but there was violence in it too. The way he attacked the basket was not a delicate melody, but the pounding of war drums. Thump, thump, slam. Each dunk was not just 2 points. It was a declaration. I belong here. I'm better than you. Your era is ending, and mine is beginning. and the pros guarding him felt it. For Magic, it was like trying to stop a blur of rhythm that never slowed down. For Bird, it was witnessing a player who moved with a force that couldn't be diagrammed on a chalkboard. For Isiah, it was being hounded by a defender who turned defense into counter melody, picking pockets and chasing down shooters with relentless energy. Pat Riley once said, "He's as gifted a player as any I've ever seen play ball." And what he was describing wasn't just skill, but the way Jordan blended artistry with brutality, melody with chaos. For the legends, trying to stop him was like trying to silence a song you had never heard before. Too fast, too complex, too alive. And that raised the uncomfortable question. If at 21, Jordan was already orchestrating his own music, drowning out Hall of Famers with every note, what would happen when he had the stage to himself in the NBA, with a full career to compose? Part 7. Comparisons in Foreshadowing. That 8-game sweep in the summer of 1984 wasn't just an exhibition. It was a prophecy, a preview reel of rivalries that would define basketball for the next 15 years. When Michael Jordan slashed through Magic Johnson's defenses in those scrimmages, it was a foreshadowing of June 1991, when the Bulls met the Lakers in the NBA Finals. Magic was still Showtime's conductor, dazzling crowds with no-look passes and fast breaks, but Jordan was no longer the hungry college kid. He was the unstoppable, most valuable player, averaging 31.2 points, 11.4 assists, and 6.6 rebounds in the series, including the iconic switch hands layup in Game 2 that left defenders frozen. The Bulls won 4-1, and Magic himself later admitted, "That was Michael's turn. The league was his." Oh. Against Larry Bird, the connection was even more poetic. Bird had already seen what the kid could do in those exhibitions, but in 1986, Jordan carved 63 points out of the Boston Garden in a double overtime playoff classic, still the most points ever scored in a postseason game. Bird's response became immortal. That was God disguised as Michael Jordan. Though the Bulls lost, it was clear. Jordan's star burned too bright to be dimmed forever. And then there was Isiah Thomas, the Detroit general who looked Jordan in the eye during those summer scrimmages and recognized a rival for the ages. Their battles would come to define the late '80s season, with the Pistons crafting the infamous Jordan rules. A brutal defensive scheme designed to cut him off at every angle, knock him down, and test his will. For years, the bad boys succeeded, sending Jordan home in 3 straight postseasons before he finally broke through in 1991, sweeping Detroit in the Eastern Conference Finals and refusing their infamous handshake snub. In hindsight, those exhibition games were less a warm-up and more a cinematic trailer for the decade and a half that followed. They showed that Jordan wasn't just here to compete with the icons of the 1980 season. He was here to surpass them, to rewrite the script, and to turn legends into stepping stones. The sweep was the warning shot. The dynasty was the feature presentation. Part 8. Odds and stats that define the moment. When you strip away the highlight reels and the glowing quotes, the raw numbers from that summer of 1984 still read like something out of fiction. 8 games against NBA All-Star lineups, 8 victories for Michael Jordan and his college teammates. The record was a clean 8-0, with 6 of those wins coming by double digits. Proof it wasn't luck, it was domination. In the final showdown, the NBA sent its heaviest artillery: Magic Johnson, Isiah Thomas, Alex English, Mark Aguirre, Michael Cooper, Larry Nance, and still, the scoreboard told the same story. Team USA 84, NBA All-Stars 72. Jordan poured in 27 points that night, padded with rebounds, assists, steals, and a thunderous putback dunk that left veterans shaking their heads. Pat Riley, watching closely, would call him as gifted a player as any I've ever seen play ball. And it didn't end there. Just weeks later, Jordan led Team USA into the Los Angeles Olympics, averaging 17.1 points per game, once again steering his squad to a flawless 80-0 record and the gold medal. Think about the odds. College players weren't supposed to beat seasoned pros. Not then. Not ever. It would be like today's NCAA champions, sweeping a team of LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, Nikola Jokic, and Kawhi Leonard across 8 straight games. The thought is laughable, almost absurd. And yet, in 1984, it happened. This wasn't just about talent. It was about will. About a kid from North Carolina who refused to acknowledge the supposed gap between amateur and professional, between dream and reality. Jordan wasn't intimidated by the names on the jerseys across from him. He was motivated by them, and every statistical line tells the same story. He didn't just belong on the court with the NBA's best, he outclassed them. For the league's veterans, those numbers were more than embarrassing. If this was Jordan at 21, what would he become once he gained experience, once he harnessed the full scope of his ability? The odds said college kids couldn't touch NBA All-Stars. Jordan rewrote the odds, and in doing so, he rewrote basketball history. Part 9. The rookie who proved it wasn't a fluke. When the exhibition dust settled and the 1984 Olympics were over, the real question hovered like smoke over the NBA. Was Michael Jordan's demolition of All-Stars just a summer anomaly, or could a 21-year-old rookie actually translate it against the grind of an 82-game season? The answer came fast, violent, and undeniable. By November, the same veterans he had embarrassed in July were now being torched under the bright lights of the league, and the numbers left no room for doubt. Jordan averaged 28.2 points, 6.5 rebounds, 5.9 assists, and 2.4 steals per game, all while shooting an astounding 52% from the field, a percentage unheard of for a perimeter player carrying an expansion-level roster like the Chicago Bulls. He didn't just score, he dictated tempo. He lifted a franchise that had been forgotten, dragging Chicago back into the playoffs for the first time since 1981. The impact was seismic. By mid-season, he was an all-star starter, an honor reserved for established stars. And by spring, he was unanimously crowned Rookie of the Year, joining the ranks of Kareem and Wilt as players whose first year announced an era. He's the best player I've ever seen in my life, Larry Bird would later admit, not just because of the 63-point detonation against Boston in the 1986 playoffs, but because as early as that rookie campaign the signs were there. Jordan wasn't learning the league, he was bending it to his will. Even seasoned coaches couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Kevin Lowry, Jordan's first NBA coach, once said, "There wasn't anything he couldn't do. He was the best player in the league his first year, and that's the haunting truth." While most rookies stumble through adjustment periods, Jordan had already been sharpened by duels with Magic, Bird, and Isiah before he'd even signed his first professional contract. The kid who humiliated the NBA's elite in July proved by November that it wasn't a fluke, it wasn't a phase, it was the beginning of an empire. And the question became less about if Jordan could dominate the league, and more about how long the league could possibly survive him. The 1984 exhibitions remain one of basketball's strangest secrets. A college kid beating the best the NBA had to offer 8 times. But for those who watched, it wasn't just shocking, it was clarifying. The pros had seen the future, and it wore number 23. Jordan didn't just play those games, he announced himself. Every jumper, every dunk, every stare down was a message. I'm not coming, I'm here. And maybe that's why legends still talk about it decades later, because before the championships, before the MVPs, before the GOAT debates, Michael Jordan had already destroyed the NBA. If you like this video, don't forget to press the subscribe button and ring the bell to not miss the latest videos from Amazing Hoops. Please leave your comments and suggestions below in the comments section, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. This action also motivates us to try harder. Have a nice day.